Episode 165 of Australia's #1 marketing show. In this episode, I show you how to name a business, plus I have a chat to Australia's leading vasectomy specialist, aka Dr Snip. Let's chop to it.
Welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show, where successful small business owners share their secrets to take your marketing to the next level. Now here's your host, Tim Reid.
G'day everyone and welcome back to another episode of Australia's #1 marketing show. I'm your host, your humble little host, Timbo Reid, but you, so much more importantly, are a motivated small business owner ready to crank out some very, very smart marketing, and that is how we roll around here. And we are brought to you by the very good folk at Net Registry, who have just launched 3 new, very crunchy packages for you, exclusive for you, the small business, big marketing listener. They've got the DIY search engine optimization package, which will help you get your search engine optimization set up. That's $99. There's a keyword research service also for $99. It's going to help you identify your keywords, and we've all got to do that. And they've also got a Google AdWords setup service for $150. So head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, click on the Net Registry banner, and you will see the details of those services. And if you ring them, tell them Timbo sent you. And a very big welcome to everyone at the Flying Solo community. Now, big show, always a big show. It was a big show last week. Bit of funny business with old AG, Andrew Griffiths. But this week, bit of a different spin, but so much marketing gold to cover. I've got to tell you.
They want to get my gold on the ceiling.
What do we got? We've got a listener question. It's all about how to go about naming a business, which is a great question. I know many of you have the need to do that, whether it be a business or a service or a product. You need to name it. So we'll go through how you do that. Got some feedback from an engineer who has no influence over the marketing of his business whatsoever. What the? And a bit of a forum update. I have got today's guest as well. Absolute ripper interview with none other than Dr Snip, the vasectomy doctor who has so much marketing gold to share. It'll be an absolute snipper. I know, it was a bad dad joke. I'm getting accused a lot lately, particularly of my 3 teenage children, of bad dad jokes. Maybe it's just the time of life that I'm in, and as a listener of the show, just got to roll with it because that's where my humour's gone. It was never great, but now it's sort of just heading towards dad jokes. So we'll live with that. Now, listener question. This listener question is from Venu, and Venu's written me a couple of times, and I've got a pile of questions from listeners, so please be patient. I will get to them all, but I thought, and Venu's question, second one came through again yesterday, so I thought we'd better get into it, given that naming is a bit of a topic, a bit of a theme of this show, particularly with Dr Snip coming up. He says, "Hello, Timbo. My name is Venu. I have deleted all my rap collection to save all 164 episodes of your show on my iPhone." Oh, thanks, Venu. Biggest fan of the show. "I just get so much information from the show. Now I've decided to start my own brand and business." Oh, wow. I was responsible for National Surf Day in New Zealand. Now I'm going to be responsible for Venu's business. Okay. I have been working in apparel and textiles for over 10 years. I have a few ideas, but I've decided to go small. To start, I'm going to do home textile business where we sell kitchen towels, aprons, mitts, bed sheets, etc. And later on, I'm going to go big and add more products. Yeah, well, that's a good idea. Better to start small and grow big than start big and grow small. Well, you could argue both ways, actually. My wife and I have been sitting on brand business names for a couple of weeks, but couldn't decide on one. I thought I'd write to you for help. I remember you mentioned in a previous episode how you like naming things. So can you give me a hand? So far, these names we've come up with: Superloom, Smart Loom, Warp Weft. That's a funny one. Warp Weft. I don't get that. But, then he goes on to say, I know the forum's an option, but I'm not ready yet. I will join once my business is launched. Well, the forum is an option because inside the forum, there is actually a thread happening at the moment about posting your question about naming a product, a business, or a service, or a promotion. And that's getting some really interesting traction. However, what I want to do, Vanu, is instead of offering you up some names, because I just don't have enough of the brief, is I'm going to give you 9 things that you need to do to get the brief right to help you get the name that you're going to love. So number 1, get clear on what you do. That's pretty obvious, but just get really, really clear on what the business does in your mind and don't veer from that. Number 2, identify your best mates. You've heard me talk before about your best mates. Who's that person that you should have front and center every time you create some marketing material about your business? And in doing so, having them, what problems do they have that you can solve? How do they feel about the industry in which you operate? All those questions, it's going to help you create a name that will resonate with them. Get clear on the personality of the brand that you're trying to create. This is all this brand character stuff that I've spoken about in previous episodes. And there's entire video tutorials that live inside the Small Business Big Marketing Forum that takes you through this process. Look at the competitive set is number 4. So have a look at what names are out there in the industry in which you intend to launch into. That doesn't mean you should have a similar name. It might mean that you go, okay, well, all those names are like that. I'm going to challenge it and be completely different. Capture, then once you've got the brief, what I suggest you do is capture related words, okay? So for example, I'm going through a naming process at the moment for a financial planning group. And what I've done to start with is just write, I've got the brief from them, and now I've written down all the words that come to mind when I think about the elements of that brief. So words, and I'm looking at them now, words like grow, solid, bedrock, freedom, king, free, head of the pack, blooming, summit, eureka, elevate. I've just captured just all the words that come to mind. These aren't names. These are just words from which I may well develop names. And I think that's a really useful thing to do. A whiteboard is a fantastic thing for this as well. So once you've captured creative words, be open to sparks. Off the back of words that are related to the industry, the names will start to come, okay? So start to capture the names and just write them all down. Don't be judgmental, just get all the names down. And then let the names flow, and I start, once they start to flow, you categorize them. So there might be made up words. For me, with the financial planning group that I'm helping name at the moment, I have made up words, which mean nothing, but they sound kind of cool and interesting. I have words related to status. I have names related to growth. I have names related to size. So I start to categorize them that way. The other thing you could do, Vanu, is head out on social media, mate, and ask people on your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Twitter. Social media is great for that kind of research. And then the last point, number 9, obviously, once you've got that list of names, use your gut feeling, your instinct, and go, yeah, that's the one. I love that name, because you want to love your business name. And, if you're going to share the ideas with other people, make sure that they see your brief and don't just respond subjectively. You want them to respond objectively. So having seen the brief, and be sure the domain name is available in your country. I think that's really important, that your business name is reflected exactly, is mirrored in your domain name. I just think it makes for easier, simpler communication. So Vanu, mate, I hope that's useful. If you do want to help generating some names, do head into the forum. For $49 a month, you're going to get yourself a business name and a whole lot of other things as well. Listeners, if you've got a question, head over to, just send me a question, questions at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, or head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. You can send me a voicemail as well. Oh, I make myself laugh. Just before I hit record, I've decided on what the intro music will be to Dr Snip very shortly. So as I share upcoming guests with you and introduce Dr Snip, have a think what the track could be. At least I make myself laugh, if no one else. Hey, now, often at the end of a show, which sometimes I wonder how many people really hang out till the very end, I let you know what guests I've got coming up. But I thought I'd do that now because I'm just going nuts with just how much marketing gold I've got to share with you motivated small business owners over the coming weeks. Now, I'm actually heading off to Italy in a week's time, but I have got a plethora of gold in the can, ready to go to release each Tuesday, as per normal, as if nothing had ever changed. And whilst admittedly, I'll be also looking for some marketing nuggets to share with you as well. Hopefully record a couple of episodes whilst I'm over there. But hey, listen, how about this? These are some of the guests coming up on the Small Business Big Marketing Show, thanks to Net Registry. I've got Nicole. Nicole's a female gym owner in Canada, and she's got 45 of her clients that have decided to tattoo her logo on their bodies. Yep, tattoo. How did she do that? We will find out. I have got Jonathan. Jonathan is the founder and creator of Frankston TV. Frankston's a pretty rough and tumble suburb close to where I lived, but they've started their own TV show and they are changing perceptions overnight. I've got Mike. Mike is the world's leading drum teacher who is nailing his business offline and online. I just did the interview with Mike this morning, and OMG, he shares just some magnificent stuff. It was a beautiful interview. It's the only way I can describe it. Real connection with Mike, and can't wait to share that one with you over the coming weeks. And then I've got Tony, and Tony took Harvey Norman Computers from a $12 million minnow to a $580. Yeah, he did really well. He completely sent them broke. No, to a $580 million empire. And he did that all off the back of some very smart marketing that we can apply in our businesses. So just some of the guests coming up on the show. Now, today's guest, let's get stuck in to Dr. Snip. I've got to thank Justin Getty, who is a forum member from prophecyinvesting.com. Justin very, very kindly sent me an email through the forum and said, Timbo, here's a couple of guest suggestions. And one was Dr. Snip. Justin says, the first one, he sends me this email detailing two opportunities for guests. One is, he says, geez, I'm stumbling over my words. I could completely edit that out, but I won't. The first business is one that offers vasectomies. Yep, that's right, the old chop, says Justin. It's called Dr. Snip. Great name to start with, which I absolutely agree with, and we talk about that in this interview. And they offer a scalpel-free procedure using only local anaesthetic. So his offering is unique. You can drive home afterwards just like the dentist. It's interesting from a marketing perspective because their product is not something that people readily buy or talk about, speak about openly. So it is a tough marketing challenge. Justin goes on to be the funny guy that he is and suggest that I go and have a vasectomy and do the interview at the same time. No thanks. Just do the interview today, see how that goes. And if I'm kind of liking Dr. Snip, yeah, look, we'll ease into a little bit of a vasectomy at some point in time. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get into Dr. Snip. His nickname, his real name is Dr. Nick Demediuk, and he is based in Melbourne, Australia. He also has a clinic up on the Sunshine Coast. He's got some marketing gold to share. I wonder what that track I have lined up is.
Now it cuts like a knife, but it feels so right. Yeah, it cuts like a knife.
Dr. Nick Demediuk, aka Dr. Snip, welcome to Small Business Big Marketing.
Thanks.
Now, first of all, a little bit late, about a month or so late, but happy World Vasectomy Day for October 18.
Oh, thanks so much.
A great day for you and the rest of the vasectomy doctors around the world?
Look, it was very exciting for everyone. We did a whole lot of vasectomies live and streamed them on the internet, and it got a lot of publicity for vasectomy. Yep.
So was that just in? I understand there was a vasectomy-a-thon in Adelaide. Was that where all the live vasectomies was being streamed?
No, we had sites all around the world, but the significance of Adelaide was that there was a film done of Dr. Doug Stein from Florida. I believe it was half funded by Dick Smith, just to increase the knowledge of vasectomy. And it was like the launch of the film, which was subsequently aired on SBS.
I saw that. Is that the fellow? He's quite manic, isn't he? He is racing around to third world countries, just working incredibly long hours, doing as many vasectomies as he can. Is that him?
That's him. And in fact, I'm joining him in the Philippines in January with my wife. So
Goodness me.
there you go.
He's on a mission, that fellow.
Yeah, but the interesting thing was he was, they organised the launch of the film, and he needed somebody to sponsor him for the purpose of the medical board to be able to operate on our patients in Australia. So they had a bit of trouble getting a urologist in Adelaide to look after him. So they contacted me, and I was happy to oblige. And he actually came up to my surgery in Queensland and worked on my patients for a day there. And then we had the World Vasectomy Day about a week later in Adelaide.
Is that good for business? So you're sponsoring this fellow?
Oh, it's been good from the point of view. I've got a fair bit of publicity in Adelaide. A patient came in here just yesterday and said, "Oh, doctor, I don't see this patient anymore because I don't do general practice anymore." But he said, "Oh, Dr. Nick, you wouldn't have seen this, but this was in the Adelaide papers." And he pulled out this sort of half-page colour article, which had a picture of me and Dr. Doug Stein, and a big article about it. So people have heard about it, certainly, and a lot of people have heard about that fellow, and now when they've searched the internet, they find my picture popping up in odd places. So it's been very, very effective.
Tell me, that whole World Vasectomy Day, I've had a lady on previously, Flip Shelton, who started World Porridge Day, National Porridge Day. I found out only recently that this show is responsible for National Surf Day in New Zealand. Who came up with World Vasectomy Day?
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure.
I thought you were going to say you.
No. I think it was Jonathan Stark, the actual director of the vasectomy film.
Uh-huh.
I think that was his baby, and he's a pretty cluey guy, and he put all this stuff together. It was good.
Now, listen, let's talk marketing. I think it's fascinating. I love what you've done with the whole Dr. Snip thing. You clearly, you have a product that prospects just don't talk about openly. Your customers don't talk about openly. Probably puts a fear of God into many. And I kind of want to explore how you overcome that in the lead up, in generating inquiry and then converting that inquiry into business, into a vasectomy. So let's kind of head down that path, and the name Dr. Snip. Let's just start there. How did that come about?
Well, I'll give you the full story, but it's not too long. First of all, I've been married for about 35 years. Wifey's from Queensland, and we've always gone to the Sunshine Coast for holidays with the kids, but they've all grown up, and we bought a unit there a while back, and the kids all grew up and suddenly everyone stopped going up there. So we had this unit which we never rented. We just left it there and it did nothing. Wife said, "Listen, we need a job. You need a job up here. If you don't get a job up in Queensland, I'm going to leave you." So I didn't have much choice. And at that stage, vasectomy was just part of my general practice business. It was just like I delivered babies for 21 years. I've done a bit of everything, but that was just sort of like a sideline almost, you know. Mm-hmm. And what happened then was my wife found a room next to a medical centre, and we thought, well, how are we going to get noticed? So marketing really came up. Mm-hmm. Now, doctors are very conservative creatures. We don't generally, marketing's not really in our DNA. But when you set up a business cold in a place like Queensland, you've got to figure out, how you can get, somebody to come to you. Well, one of my daughters just happens to have done a lot of intellectual property law. And she said, "Dad, everyone calls you, Dr. Snip, or say they're going to have the snip. You need to trademark that."
Love it.
And so simple as that. Daughter says, "We'll trademark it." She does that. And I think, well, we need a logo. So I knocked off a picture of a sperm with sunglasses from the internet, and I put a no parking sign around it. And then my daughter says, "You need to trademark that too, Dad." So we trademarked the logo at the same time. The other daughter, who's married to an electrician,
yep,
she's got a 1300 Blunts number, which is the name of her husband's, electrical firm. She says, "Dad, you need a 1300 number." So she gets me the 1300 Dr. Snip number. And really from that, we sort of took off. We tried advertising the usual things in the newspaper. Didn't get much result. We wrote to every GP on the Sunshine Coast, and that brought in a fair bit of business. That was pretty good. And then we moved on and thought, oh, well, let's try radio. And that's when we really started having a lot of fun. And
That would have gone nuts. Sorry.
yeah, it did go nuts, and it was very good.
Well, tell me. Let's not. You tried radio. I can imagine with the right execution that actually being very powerful. Did that at the time? Was that the most powerful marketing that you did?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Look, that really got my name known on the Sunshine Coast. So now on the Sunshine Coast, and it's funny because very early on, some bloke was talking to me about marketing, and I thought he was I better not say he was a bit of a wanker, but
wanker.
Yeah. And he said, "Doctor, what you need to do is get noticed. Like, your name's going to be like Coca-Cola, And the weird thing is, up on the Sunshine Coast, the whole Dr Snip thing has taken off, and it is a bit like you ask people now, where did you hear about it, and they say, oh, everybody just knows you go to Dr Snip, and it's like a second nature thing. So it really has been pretty good in that marketplace.
Well, you clearly there was some thought put into it. I mean, as much as your daughter's just gone, oh, you should call you Dr Snip. I mean, and it's great. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but it's quite a smart marketing play.
Oh, look, it's been good. Look, we did worry. I mean, like you say, we put a lot of thought into it. I don't know how much thought we did put into it, but we were very worried at the beginning because of our nature. Is that going to put people off? And in fact, in the early days, people said, "Oh, look, I didn't know if you were dodgy or not." Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, because Dr Snip, you can look at it two ways. Like it could be like Doctor. And my name happens to be Nick too, so like, hello everybody, I'm Dr Nick.
Yeah.
They worry about if they call themselves Dr Slip, they might be some sort of fly by night, scummy sort of low quality clinic. Rather than a person that really knows what they're doing. And so that's there's still that feeling out there, and that might affect a small percentage of the population, but fortunately it's a small percentage.
They're a bit wackier. I mean, this is a global audience, but we need to explain. But up in Queensland, it's a little bit more relaxed, and they're a bit wackier up there. I would imagine in Melbourne, a lot more conservative, because you've also got a practice in Melbourne.
Yep.
A lot more conservative. Was there a greater kind of resistance to the name down here?
Oh, look, I don't think there's a shadow of a doubt. The interesting thing about the Sunshine Coast, it's got a demographic of a regional town. Like if you're in Victoria, it'd be like Geelong. It's not a big capital city, and the predominant sort of people up there are basically a lot of tradies up there, and a lot of fly-out miners. So whereas down in Melbourne, every second person comes in and says, "Look, I'm an IT professional," or "I'm some other, a service industry," but based in a capital city rather than, a service industry from the country.
I think, too, the other thing is that you are – I just think it was an interesting play because you're bound by all these rules, code of conduct, being in the medical profession. It's very rare to see a medical practice – I think dentists are doing it more, places like, the Smile Place, to actually take on a brand name. I just think it's really smart because actually the bar is really low to stand out. Yeah,
that's true. Well, look, one of the things the medical board, the regulation authority does, it prohibits comparative advertising. So I can't get out there and say, look, I'm better than anybody else. I mean, I can say what I do, and it just so happens that my technique is better than most people. But that's by the by.
Yeah.
But you can't actually get out there and say that you're better than anybody else because under our rules, everyone's supposed to be competent at what they do.
It's interesting, your technique as another point of difference. And I always find it really, point of difference, crowded marketplace. It doesn't matter whether you're talking to, a bloke like yourself or, a plumber or a masseur. Every industry is crowded, so the ability to stand out is what it's all about.
Well, point of difference. I mean, like we advertise that we do no scalpel vasectomy.
Exactly, you're offering in itself. Has that not now been matched? I remember watching a video where you said, I think the technique was developed, the no scalpel technique was developed in 1975. You brought it to Australia when?
Oh, gee, I'm not good at dates, but I started doing it probably about 85 or something,
Okay, but surely there's plenty of people doing it now.
Well, the fascinating thing, look, if you go to England, everybody advertises they're a member of the British No Scalpel Vasectomy Association. We don't even have such an association in Australia.
You better start one.
Yeah. The thing is that most specialists have been taught a particular way, and they still do it the old-fashioned way where they put a cut on both sides and do stitches.
Mm-hmm.
And that's associated with higher side effect rates, bleeding, bruising, hematomas.
Associated with pain.
Well, and pain, yeah. So all those things aren't that good. So that's one point of difference. I've expanded that now to say no scalpel open-ended vasectomy. So we leave the bottom end open, so there's no back pressure. So traditionally they tie off both ends. And that technique was invented by a Queenslander, a guy called Trevor Sauer, and he was a very smart bloke. I think he won Sale of the Century or something
Right.
in his day. And the third thing we're just introducing now is no needle vasectomy. So we can actually use a sort of spray applicator to get the anaesthetic in and then do the no scalpel and the open-ended vasectomy. So we've sort of expanded on the points of difference.
Okay, that leads me into that whole thing about you have a customer base, a prospect base full of fear, don't want to talk about all this stuff, but what you're doing by actually highlighting all these things, I guess in your messaging on your website, in any communication you put out there, is that you are addressing fear head on, yeah?
Yeah. We do actually write down, better than going to the dentist.
Nice.
Apologies to dentists out there.
Yeah. Hello to all you dentists out there. Well, you could actually, there's a joint venture. Hey, you could get your teeth cleaned and get a snip at the same time.
Yeah, look, and in fact, that no needle stuff that I was talking about, dentists in the States use that a lot.
Right. But that's clever. I mean, I talk a lot to my listeners about get your message right first before you worry about where to put it. And you really have put some thought into your message, because I'm guessing that your great challenge is to get the inquiry, which you've kind of, before we talk about conversion, what happens when that inquiry happens, what are you doing now? You're still doing radio?
Yeah, we're still doing radio. We've learned a lot from doing radio. And in fact, I don't know, that's probably a thing that might be of interest. We thought, well, what do you do when you're advertising? Okay, our demographic, we operate on males who need a vasectomy. So first we started advertising in Melbourne. It's a big marketplace, so we've got all the national radio stations. We thought, well, pick on the sports radio station, SEN in Melbourne.
Yep.
And we thought that's where you go. That's where the customers are, all blokes, between, say, 25 and, 50. Perfect marketplace. Well, the feedback from that was we advertised and nothing happened. And that was probably 5 years ago. So blokes listen to that ad, hear the ad and think that's a really good idea. And then they just sit on it. In fact, I had a guy who came in today for a vasectomy. I said, where'd you get here? He said, the radio. I said, what station are you hearing? He said, SEN. So we haven't advertised there for 5 years.
Wow.
So we changed our ploy and we picked on a station that markets itself to females of the same age group, the 25 to, say 45.
Yeah. Darling, can you go and get the snip?
Well, it's been better than that. In fact, we now do a 2 week on, 2 week off cycle. And my staff complain on the 2 week on cycle because it drives them insane because they get all these calls.
Wow. So is it the female calling or the bloke calling?
Well, it's quite often the female calling, but it's either that or they get their bloke to call. They stand over them, with the, proverbial rolling pin and smack them around the ears if they don't ring.
Well, that's another thing I notice in your messaging on your website. You invite the partner in to be part of that pre-vasectomy consultation. You even make reference to the fact that it's free. Another fear, another blockage to doing business.
That's only because I want to talk to girls rather than I'm sick of talking to blokes all my life. So.
Wow, mate, a question for later in the episode, but the fact that you're handling blokes' private parts all day, every day, I mean, can't get my head around that. You're doing a world of good, no doubt. So that's really interesting. So now you've figured out the radio formula, which is advertise on the female radio stations. What's the call to action, Nick? Because that, I imagine, is really important.
The call to action.
In the radio.
Well, look, I haven't listened to my ads for a while because we've got about 4 different ones we rotate around. But the main message is, one is related to fear, I suppose, of having more kids. About sperm tadpoles causing more damage. And
do you actually have there's a bloke in Melbourne, Reid, who's a what is he? He's like a real estate.
Yeah.
And he has his call to action in his radio, which he's prolific in, is ring up and order and ask for your book, Real Estate Traps Exposed.
Yeah.
And it's a really clever kind of sequence, because what he's doing, instead of saying like, come and buy from me, he's saying, look, grab my book before you buy a house or sell your house, and I'll explain how I can add value to that. And then obviously within that book, there's a very clever sales funnel. And I've seen dentists do the same. What is your call to action? Simply give us a buzz and, we're underway?
Well, unfortunately, our call to action has been banned from by the main radio station in Melbourne, but all the other radio stations put it on, and it ends up with all you need is a little prick.
Boom, boom. You have got a sense of humour. In fact, you have got such a sense of humour that I was watching you on a YouTube video recently performing a vasectomy. And quote unquote, in fact, your patient said, "So what are you doing now, doc?" And quote unquote, you said, "We're grabbing your nuts in a pair of pliers and we're pulling your guts out as we speak." And I think you've got to have a sense of humour, don't you?
Oh, look, you got to say something to these blokes, because they're pretty worried about their crown jewels,
Yes.
Sometimes what I say doesn't help that much, but them's the breaks.
Okay, so you're generating a lot of inquiry. That doesn't necessarily mean you've got a sale at that point. So you have, what's your setup? You've got a practice, and there's people. Are there people there dedicated to taking a sales call, or is it just whoever answers the phone?
Look, unfortunately, I haven't got a dedicated person. It's just whoever answers the phone. But I've got a team of. I practice in Melbourne from a 12-doctor sort of surgery where we've got a fantastic team of receptionists who are all been worded up on vasectomies, and whoever's they answer the call. But the call, when it comes through that 1300 number, it comes up on the phone that's what it's about. So they can answer the phone appropriately as Dr Snip.
Do they have a script?
No, they don't actually have a script. They play it by ear every time. But people ask such a range of different questions that, it could be anything that they're asking. But the staff are all fantastic at handling those calls, answering the questions. If there's something they can't answer, they'll get the nurse to help out. But they know that it's a priority to answer the vasectomy calls and give patients whatever information they want. So they'll direct them to the website or say, we'll send out the information pack or whatever it takes,
Gotcha. So really the strategy there is because these blokes are, the questions they're asking are really important to them. So the strategy for your people at the other end of the phone is to give them the time they need to get clear on their decision.
Yeah, and look, the other thing is, the staff know it sounds condescending to the staff, but some places, people tell me that they ring up, people treat them like they're the customer's doing them a favour. They're doing the customer a favour. When we take the view that we're a service industry and, we're there to help and assist the patient as much as we possibly can. We're not, so our staff are very friendly and engaging, and nothing's too hard for them to answer.
Yeah, well, I think that's important. I think, it all comes down to understanding your prospect and knowing what's on their mind. And even the amount of questions. I notice on your website you've got quite an extensive frequently asked questions section, and those are, as you say, there would be no shortage of questions that the blokes are asking, because at the end of the day, we're wimps, aren't we?
Yeah, sure.
Let's admit it.
And engineers are the worst. So, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You've got it down to an actually industry.
Look, industry-wise, the only patients that give me grief are engineers, because they're...
Oh, they get the plumbing. They get the whole plumbing thing and want to know what's going on.
No, but they want to know it to the nth degree. They're very anally retentive, whereas doctors and dentists and accountants, you say to them, you've been anally retentive, and they say, yeah, it goes with the territory. We've got to be particular. But engineers are sort of just a bit one step beyond that, where they don't know that they're different.
Yeah. Tell me, just finishing that marketing discussion, Nick, you got all that radio. Radio's not cheap. Do you mind if I ask, what do you allocate? What's your marketing budget for the year?
Look, to be honest, we always wonder about how much we should spend. It's very difficult. The beauty about the Sunshine Coast, which is a smaller marketplace, it's a lot cheaper. And there's only, I think, 2 or 3 radio stations there, and the same company owns 2 of them. So you cover a lot of market for a lot less money up there. We've never actually sat down and said, look, this is how much we generate, and this is the percentage. So I'm not a real figures sort of person.
Yeah, right.
Like, I've practiced all my life without actually, people just look at me and just think, you're crazy. You know, like, you don't add anything up, you don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've met many of those. It's not just exclusive to the medical profession either, but I call them emotional marketers. I'm one of them as well. Do you do Google AdWords? Do you do other things beyond the radio?
Yeah, look, we've got Google AdWords, and the internet is probably one of the bigger
sources of inquiry.
Yeah, and that's pretty fantastic. So, look, I'm no expert at Google AdWords. I've got a receptionist that does all my Google stuff, and it seems to work out in the wash at the end of the day.
So you don't have an agency or anything. All your marketing's done in house.
Yeah, it's done in house. We have just got a new web site and a new web company that they actually give you some advice every month. You can ring them up and they'll give you free advice every month. So that's been good. We did try getting some search engine optimization from a company, but we didn't find that they added anything to our profile at all.
That's interesting. Might have been the company.
I think it was probably the company more than anything else. But
yeah. Would you say that you are working towards kind of owning the vasectomy space in Australia? Because I understand you're wanting to franchise, and with a name like Dr Snip, you're sort of aiming to be the go-to guy for vasectomies in Australia.
Well, that is the goal. Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a great goal. And, I'm not sure it's going to happen just off the back of radio advertising and a bit of fancy Google AdWords. Do you get out there and work the room? Are you on the speaking circuit? How else do you build that profile, that personal brand?
Gee, no, look, that's all we've done. One of the ads in Queensland came with a free TV spot for about 10 TV spots in the middle of the night. But that's about it. I do a bit of medical politics and stuff like that. So people see me around and, they know I just do vasectomies for a living, but they're not, that's just the same marketplace.
I think it's just, from a marketing point of view, it's so clever, because I look at other businesses like the Drain Guy, and he too he's nailed radio. And, when you own a niche, when you've got the courage to own a niche and say, hey, all we do is drains and all you do is vasectomies, it makes it really easy for people to know what you do, and it makes it easy for you to promote what you do.
I've just remembered the other important thing that we do is, it's almost like a sleeper, but ever since I've done vasectomies, I have given every guy that has a vasectomy a stubby holder with Dr Snip, my logo on it, and the phone number.
Love it.
And it's a lovely stubby holder, if I do say so myself. But let me tell you that I've had people come from Queensland that have seen it at a barbecue in Queensland. They've come to me in Victoria and had a vasectomy. I've done vasectomies on Queensland guys that have seen it, from guys in Victoria.
Yeah.
It's just, that has been pretty amazing. Like, it's not a high, what would you call it, like an immediate return sort of thing. But
yeah,
blokes all some blokes say, look, they refuse the stubby holder, but that's 1 in 200. The rest of them love it, and they have a beer with their mates, and that's what gives me a fair bit of sort of ongoing out there in the marketplace.
So simple. I had, speaking of the Drain Guy, I had the Drain Guy come around to my place about 3 years ago. $2,500 later, my drains were cleared. But he kindly sent me a DVD of that movie Kenny, about the plumber.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, maybe we could put our thinking caps on and figure out what DVD could you send your clients post vasectomy.
Look, I'll send you any movie. I think I'll just charge as much as the Drain Man and I'll be right.
Oh, mate, that was insane. I felt, in fact, in receiving that, it actually just left a bad taste in my mouth, because $2,500 later, I wasn't overly joyed. And in fact, I got 2 copies of Kenny. So whether he just thought I was a great client, I think the thing with the Drain Man is he could potentially have repeat purchase, whereas I'm guessing you wouldn't have a very loyal customer base.
No, look, I don't, and I don't want a big complaints department either. So
no, you don't.
So I want to do it right first time, every time.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Hey, listen, I just want to talk franchising, Doc, because I understand that you are have you headed down that path yet, or you're thinking of it?
Oh, look, I'm thinking about it. Look, I've written down a lot of stuff. I've got stuff about how I do my operation, what I need for it, all that sort of stuff. when I started up in Queensland, I mean, I took the opportunity to actually, in detail write down every nut and bolt that I required in this new practice.
Boom, boom.
Yeah.
There hasn't been enough vasectomy jokes in this interview, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be very mature.
Good.
I interviewed a lady from an adult shop about 3 years ago, and I kept on getting the giggles. So I'm just trying to hold it together, be really sensible. I've got a few terms down here that I could have used throughout the course of the conversation, but no. So sorry, nuts and bolts.
Yep.
You were saying about franchising. You're getting them all together and templating it. And because it's not everyone I've spoken to who has gone down the process of franchising just says it was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah, look, I think there's a few sort of. I think the thing that bothers me the most is that outlay initially was spending all the money on legals and that sort of stuff.
Yep.
I mean, because I've heard that can be a pretty well bottomless pit, Yeah,
and then you've got to you're really putting your balls on the line.
That's right.
Thank you.
Did you get that from World Vasectomy Day? Because that's the T-shirts we wore.
Oh, really? What did it say?
On the back of the T-shirt, put your balls on the line. Yeah.
You blokes, you're weird and you've got a great sense of humour, and that's what I love about it. Now, the biggest question of all, I have to leave till the end of the interview, and it's a personal one. Does it hurt?
No.
Right. Happy days. That's all I need to know. I'll see you in about 10 minutes.
All right, yeah.
Thanks, Doc. Really appreciate you coming on Small Business Big Marketing.
No worries. It's a pleasure.
Now it cuts like a knife, but it feels so right. Yeah,
It cuts like a knife. Oh, it feels so right. You gotta love that song, and you gotta love Dr. Snip. I'm just looking at the video for Bryan Adams' Cuts Like a Knife too, by the way. Very 1980s, and there is a bloke straddling his bass guitar as if he was ready to propose marriage to it. But enough of that. Back to Dr. Snip. Marketing gold there. I got plenty of notes, and I'm going to give you my top 3 learnings from my chat. Number 1, clever names do sell. Now, that puts a lot of pressure on all us business owners to come up with a really clever name. It doesn't mean we have to, but I've seen it enough times that if you do get a name like Dr. Snip, and previously my marketing consulting business was called The Ideas Guy, and I mentioned the Drain Guy, and I don't know, there's something about it when you have a name like that it does stick with people's mind, and it does help build a picture in people's mind about who you are and what you do. So clever names sell. Number 2, don't give up on a medium too quickly. I loved how Nick did that a radio campaign targeting blokes, and he found it didn't work. So instead of giving up on radio, he went and started targeting women, and it did work. So classic example of just making a slight pivot as opposed to throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which so often happens. The amount of small business owners I might speak to that I hear, do you do Google AdWords? Oh yeah, try Google AdWords, doesn't work. Well, maybe it was the headline. Maybe it was the picture. Maybe it was something within Google AdWords that didn't work, not the medium itself. So keep on trying. Number 3, learning from Nick, have a sense of humour no matter what you do. Here is a guy who is a vasectomy doctor. That's coming from a bloke. That's serious stuff, when they're handling the tackle. You don't want jokes, or maybe you do, I don't know. But he's got a wonderful sense of humour. He puts a smile on your dial, and I think that's really important. I'm looking at some stuff on Italy at the moment, given I'm about to head there, and even there's a travel guide who's taking you on tours, audio podcast kind of thing, tours of the Colosseum and the Parthenon and all that type of stuff. And he too has a sense of humour about it. And I think, makes it entertaining, makes things memorable. So love to know what learnings you got from a chat with the good Dr. Snip. If there are any, head over to the show notes at episode 165 at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Leave your comment. I'd love to hear what floated your boat, maybe what didn't float your boat. Just love to hear from you. Okay, as we draw to the close of another episode of Australia's #1 marketing show, brought to you by the good folk at Net Registry, I've got some great feedback from engineer extraordinaire Tom Harris. And Tommy says, "Hi, Tim. Just a quick note to say thanks. I started listening to the podcast years ago when I was managing a small business." Thanks, Tom. I love hearing from long-time listeners, first-time emailers. Should be more of them. I didn't own it, but I was responsible for the marketing. With an engineering background, it was a steep learning curve. Yeah, I bet it was. Boy, oh boy, that's completely, they're poles apart in some respects. Your podcasts provide such fantastic insights with really clear messages and ideas. Anyway, a change of ownership and a restructure put me back into an engineering management role where I have little to no influence over the marketing activities. Hey, go and tap the person who has got the influence on the shoulder, Tom, and say, hey, listen, I've got some ideas for you. I think ideas should come from anywhere. And in fact, there's so often people in businesses who are sitting on great ideas but don't know how to share them. So I would actually do that, Tom. Over the course of this year, I've been working on securing a new business. I'm hoping to finalise everything before Santa arrives. Well, good luck with that, Tom. In 2014, I'm thoroughly looking forward to put into place all the ideas I have captured and stored as audio recordings in my Evernote account on my daily commute. Oh, Thomas, you have been listening to this show intently because that's what I encourage everyone to do. Thanks again, Tim. I really appreciate the information you make available and how well you and your guests present it. And that's from Tom Harris. Thank you, Tom, and thank you to everyone. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you to everyone who listens to this show because I love it. As I hit record each time, I imagine you all out there in a large concert hall, like the Colosseum, where I'm about to go to. Well, that wasn't a concert hall. That was more like, sort of a gladiatorial kind of setup. I don't know. I'll find out what it is and report back to you when I'm back from Italy. Until then, guys, thank you for listening. May you have a fantastic week. Remember, there's great guests coming up, and may your marketing be the best marketing.
You've been listening to the Small Business Big Marketing Show with Tim Reid. Want more marketing goodness? Then visit smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.